So guys, welcome to the show. We are today talking about the judiciary, our court system, the rule of law, how important not just regulatory stability is, but also legal stability. Because recently the Indian High Commissioner said, in order for us to be made attractive to Indian investors, we must also be able to look after Indian investors. So I would just like to say that, even though Sri Lanka has a good constitution, I feel it is a little bit outdated. I remember The Rule of Law by Lord Bingham, that book which I read. And by the way, I also have a LLB. I myself am very interested in talking about this subject because the rule of law applies to us all.
Exactly, Sean. And irrespective of the qualifications, now for instance, everybody can't treat for themselves. For instance, commoner can't walk into pharmacy and ask for antibiotics. They will not be given. But whereas the law is presumed, people are presumed to know the law. I mean, that's a interesting legal phenomenon where nobody can say, I didn't know, that's why I break the law. You can't say that. We are presumed to know the law. Whether you are as you said, a LLB graduate holder or a person who just sweeps the road.
Yeah.
You are presumed to know what is meant by intellectual property law. You are presumed to know how...
The basics at least.
Just no hard and fast rule. You should know the law.
You should know the law.
Yeah, so whether it's basic or advanced, it's a law. But sometimes we lawyers are finding difficult to find out what the law is. That's why we have a lot of books in NLR and the SLRs tagging up behind lawyers' chambers, not for display but to read. Depending on how you pay the reading, isn't it? The rule of law, Sean, would an investor come to Sri Lanka if there's no rule of law in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, would an Indian billionaire invest money in a property in Sri Island if he is going to be asked to pack up and go in next year?
Yeah.
If there's no stability of what the law is, no one is going to come and invest. The rule of law does not only protect the poor, it also protects the rich and the investors. So the law, when it's applicable equally to everybody, when all institutions and all persons are governed by a law, a rule, rather than by the whims and fancies of the rulers, I mean, that's what, in simple terms, what the rule of law means.
Yeah.
So you and I am sitting here because there is rule of law. Otherwise, there'll be Aragale people coming here up and asking for water, and coming here up and asking for food. And of course, water and food we all love to give. But if it's something else that we don't want to give, can we? Yeah. That's where the law protects us.
Yeah. Now, when we draw our focus now on the actual usavis, for example, let's talk about the fact that we have a huge backlog of cases. In our judicial system, a lot of the cases are kept in files. And I feel like that affects the efficiency of the courts. So how can we solve that?
In my experience, let's talk about day-to-day cases like a criminal action where a person is stopped by a traffic police officer and you are charged with traffic police. I mean, if you go to traffic police, that's a different kind of a setup, and it takes so much of time and energy that you have to spend probably one full whole day. And despite the fact that all efforts are possibly can be taken by the judiciary, it's a mess, because when a case is come to court, it's not only judges, right? It's a people, it's a public, it's a government officers, it's the police, it's the litigants, it's the lawyers. It's a full system, right? So if one of them is not busy, for instance, if the case is taken up, the lawyer is late to the court, the case will go down. Yeah. If there are more than 2 or 3 accused, and if one lawyer is absent on the trial day, the case will go down. On the date of the trial, if the only available stenograph is sick, the case will go down.
Exactly.
So because Sean, you don't have to forget that we are living in a third world country, right. And
but a third world country that wants to attract people to make it a first world country.
Exactly.
So this is why we are discussing this today. It's not that I have any issue.
I admit that there is a considerable amount of a backlog here. Even if I take cases that I myself appear, some of the cases I've been doing for more than 10 years now. For some reason, it just take time. There are productions are missing, but I think all efforts are taken by the judiciary to expedite it. For instance, in Colombo High Courts, there is this system where they are trying to implement the filing of bail applications, which is an interesting improvement given the context. Whenever a case is filed online,
That's quite a big project.
Oh, it is. I believe it's from USAID, the sponsored project, budgeted project, which is guided by the USAID, if I'm not mistaken about who the sponsor is. So but it's very useful when it comes to bail application, because you file a bail application because the person is languishing in prison, and prisons in Sri Lanka is not a place that we wish to go there.
Not a place.
So filing, at least taking up those matters quickly, is very important. And in my experience, I see that it has been done. Sure. Yeah. To be fair, but on the other hand, there are cases where, as you said, some of the cases are kept in container files. Probably they are doing some renovations and space is not sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, this shouldn't be the case, but it's what I'm trying to say. I mean, how else are you going to attract investment if they have worries such as this,
With regard to rule of law in respect of investors and the people who come from outside, I mean, they are better than common people for the some simple reason. If it's a commercial contract, obviously the matter will be filed in the commercial high court, which is very organized when you compare it with the commoners' courts. And if it's about fundamental rights action, it's super organized there in the Supreme Court and even the Court of Appeal, super. For instance, now even the lawyers had to mark appearance in the Supreme Court online. And those days we had to physically go and mark the appearances on a piece of paper. Now it has been mandatory to mark appearances online, and there is a system where you can end appearance, and there are certain, the calling matters, as the mentioned matters, are all taken up via Zoom. And litigants do not need to come to court physically. Lawyers do not need to come to court physically. And you can take the matter up via Zoom. I mean, this will definitely help people to cut down their expenses and the time, and will they be able to receive justice is a question that we had to wait and see when it times to come. But I think in terms of the court, but when it comes to commoners' courts, Sean, when I mean commoners' court, normal petty offences, magistrate courts, district courts, some of these courts, a bit of a difficult time there. Sometimes the case files is not there, you have to run behind the registrar to find where the case is, and then you have to get it organized. But I can assure to every commoner, and all lawyers, judges are doing their very best to make sure the courts and the people's rights are protected. Our constitution is, in my opinion, very poorly drafted, even though we are legally obliged to protect the constitution, which I would always do, especially the rights of the people. But I think we should have a better constitution where our citizens are not treated as subjects, but our rights are much protected.
That's a very interesting point.
Yes, and which gives us easy access to justice. And so, for instance, if a person is charged in a magistrate court, where small cases may be pole horakam, coconut theft, a small petty crime, obviously they would not have enough financial resources to retain a lawyer. And of course we have a legal aid system, but in a high court matter, the court will assign a lawyer, but in magistrate court matter, court will not assign a lawyer. I mean, these are very small. There are how much of young lawyers are there?
Things that the constitution has to stipulate.
Provide provisions. Yeah. Provide provisions. Those are the very small one that will give a lot of respect and
to the common man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even though it looks very small thing, because I have been articulating for this from very inception, that even the magistrate court, the common courthouses, there must be a system where the judge has a duty to assign a lawyer if the person doesn't have enough financial resources to retain a lawyer. Unfortunately, for the time being, there are certain legislations which was brought into, in my opinion, for the ulterior motives, like ICCPR Act, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights Act, and several other laws. But those are only to cater to certain ulterior motives, but not, in fact, to provide protection to the commoners. And for instance, now recently we see in the newspaper that a lot of Chinese people are getting arrested every day.
For some scams.
Well, they say it's scam, online scam, trying to get the OT members. I recently...
Well, actually, I'll tell you something. One of my friends just got caught. I'm not going to mention his name, but what they do is they come up with an app, and then they basically lure you into doing something, and then you end up, having to face the music.
I mean, if they are wrongdoers, they has to be apprehended. No doubt about that. But what about the other Chinese people? There could be Chinese people who are poor who come here to work in Chinese projects. I bet.
You think labor laws are being?
Well, not labor laws, but how it happens is this: first they come here tourist visa, second time they extend the tourist visa, third time they apply for business visa through the channel.
So it's a process.
Yeah, that's a process. There's always a process. So the issue is what if all the Chinese people are getting arrested just for claiming that all of them are doing online
crime? It's not just Chinese. There are also a lot of African countries. There's a whole host of countries.
For the last 2 weeks, it's all about Chinese people that they're talking about
on the news. Yes.
On the news, at least on the newspapers, right? So
there could be. The Chinese ambassador had come out and said, take it seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And I met a few of them in the prison. I had to go there because, unfortunately, everybody had their passports. Everybody had their visas. But the investigation officers, I'm not going to name who are the investigation officers, nor the Chinese people, but the investigation officers could not speak Chinese, and these poor Chinese people could not speak English.
Oh my God,
so
language
barrier. And now they are in languishing remand for no reason.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the passage of this anti-corruption bill. Corruption is a big issue in Sri Lanka. We need to tackle it head on. This is the weapon that we can use to tackle it head on. Of course, you have your police officers that do their investigations, but then they have to bring it to court. And this is why my second question to you is, what do you think of how effective do you think the passage of this anti-corruption bill will be, and how can it be effective in actually a practical sense?
John, lack of knowledge of the investigators is one of the factors why the wrongdoers are, going out of without getting punished by court. For instance, there have been so much of news reported in both newspapers and even in the medias about our registrar of motor vehicle being improperly registered. But every day you see a news. It says the magistrate warned the people to hand over vehicle, or it says the investigative officers have apprehended 120 vehicles, etc., etc. But was there any conviction? No, not to at least my knowledge. So why it is so hard?
So we need to get more convictions.
Exactly. What's the point of
What's the point? I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, Sean, it's a very interesting story. If a person get caught to a court case in Sri Lanka, it takes at least minimum of 5 to 10 years to begin the case, right? So, and after 10 years, what if you go acquitted? Who is going to pay the price for these people's life? 1 decade. It's just that I would say about considerable amount of time. If it's a youth, the problem is if the government has failed to regularize a system where a person purchases a property, then you go to the RMV to check whether the documents are correct, proper. If they document are process correct and proper, when you purchase, and later after about 5-6 years, then the investigation officer comes and says this was imported without paying taxes to the customs. What a nonsense!
You're just going back in time.
Exactly. I mean, is this where we are going to move it? I mean, at least have a. In my opinion,
we need to get rid of our vendettas.
Exactly.
We need to now seriously think positive.
Exactly. At least if I would propose everybody to admit the fact that we were going in a different direction as a country, but at least we have the topmost person has set an example that he's going to take a different path. So Sean, let's take
safeguard the rule of law.
Exactly. So let's give all these people a chance.
Yeah.
All
I am giving them a chance. I am actually excited. I can see the enthusiasm. Now, of course, there is a general election on the horizon. I hope that they do get their mandate so that they have the chance to prove themselves.
Exactly.
Because let's not take that away from them.
So let them have the chance and rectify these and have one of the indigenous Sri Lankan constitution, Sri Lankan laws, not borrowed one, photocopied one, copy-pasted ones.
Something that's applicable to
us.
in this current situation.
Exactly. And with we have done a lot of mistakes in our life as a country. So let's just give a chance. Just give a chance.
And let's do one that will encourage businesses,
Exactly.
new businesses to form. Let's not live in these archaic times. Let's embrace things that generate revenue, give people a better livelihood, give people a better salary today, not in 2048. And I think what people also want is they want to see them walk the talk now. Let's see some results. Let's not wait for 5 to 10 years, as you just said. It shouldn't be that way.
If it's so, we will not have a long run. Very soon there will be another.
And then we might as well give up the fact that we want to be the pearl of the Indian Ocean.
Exactly, Sean. Now, what you think? What you see behind is cinema life, right? You think foreigner would come to Sri Lanka if there is a danger of him getting arrested and not giving an opportunity to explain himself and fabricate a case saying that you don't have visas and you are in an online scam? I mean, what will happen? If they are wrongdoers, they have to bring...
Well, what will happen is we'll only be able to convince 2 out of 10 potential investors because of that particular point.
And there's no rule where people can stay together in a 10-15 people can stay jointly in a room or a place. Just because 10-15 people, in my context Chinese people and some Myanmar people, stay together doesn't mean that all of them are presumed to be criminals.
So Harishke, now just continuing now, when I was doing my LLB, we saw the importance of also countries engaging in arbitration. What is the current state of Sri Lanka now? Sri Lanka's arbitration laws, etc., etc. Are we taking it serious enough? Is it a big enough thing for someone to also be able to engage in such a way to solve an issue?
Alternative dispute resolution, arbitration is one of the very clean methods, I would say, in Sri Lanka. So I think we have good places, ICPCA, International Center for Arbitration, Colombo Center for Arbitration, and Chamber of Commerce is also facilitating certain arbitration places. But
is it enough?
Well, Sean, with the rapid developments that are going on, it's not enough. The space and the staff and how it happens is not enough.
Understaffing was one thing I forgot to ask.
Yeah.
So can you also can you touch upon that?
Sure. It's not enough, Sean, because it takes so much of time to initiate the case, and then the process that we tried. The reason for arbitration is we want it to be informal, but not knowingly to us, the arbitration itself is now becoming very formal.
It's becoming
so the whole purpose of arbitration is lost if it's formalized. It has to be informal. When you say informal, we are not talking about shirt and trouser. We are talking about the process, the procedure. Is not the appearance which has to be informal. The appearance can be formal and beautiful, but the procedure has to be very informal, so the people can come and at least try to resolve their disputes, especially the commercial arbitration. But all the big investors, they prefer to go to Singapore or other alternative places than selecting.
And then they pay legal fees to those companies.
Exactly.
This is another thing. I mean, I'm trying to safeguard the private sector legal practices. At least try to
give some points. Yeah. Exactly. Sean, so the arbitration laws are good. The enforcement mechanism is also a bit of a problem, because after you get an arbitration award, you have to go to Commercial High Court of Colombo to enforce. If a person has won a case, a person from Jaffna has won a case, he has to come all the way to Colombo to enforce the arbitration award. Yeah. So not all businesses are based in Colombo. Now you see Hambantota had a lot of businesses there going on. And if you take Kandy, a lot of businesses are on there. For them to, so those difficulties are there, the hiccups are, but arbitration is always good as an alternative dispute resolution method. Sure. So I believe we have to move into arbitration, even mediation, and we have to think of other methods like bringing law to the village. Right? Is one of that hot topic during the presidential election, that we are trying to bring the judiciary into your villages. I don't know what it was meant by whoever who said that. But there was a time in Sri Lanka, our dispute was resolved in a village, Gamsabha, they used to call. There was of course cap to those disputes. Doesn't matter going there.
Harishke, thanks for your time.
It
was a pleasure.
A pleasure.
Thanks.